Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kenya Merritt, and I am the Chief Small Business Officer with the City of Chicago. Thank you so much for joining us for the first ever Collaborative Government Summit. We are excited to join you today to share opportunities that each of our organizations will provide through the American Recovery Plan, as well as existing opportunities that support our city, county, and state through recovery. In today's session, you'll hear from myself, my amazing colleague Nina, and the Chicago Department of Planning and Development, Sochi Flores, Bureau Chief for the Cook County Department of Economic Development, and her team, and Jonathan McGee, who is the Deputy Director for the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity. So we'll head right into my slides. And so I'll provide a brief overview of the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. I understand that some people may not know what our department does, so I'll just briefly share. Our department wears multiple hats. One as a regulatory agency, but the other is to support and strengthen Chicago's small business landscape. We do this through providing small businesses a platform to thrive through the access to resources. We also connect businesses to opportunities to grow our local economies while also protecting our consumers and workers. Next slide. BACP does this through licensing over 60,000 businesses annually. This includes permits for outdoor dining and sidewalk cafes, which we've all come to love throughout the pandemic. We also work with business service organizations who are the linchpin between us at City Hall and what's happening in our neighborhoods. And these organizations are amazing partners in the provision of driving hyper-local business development and economic development support in our communities throughout Chicago. And so in terms of the Chicago Recovery Plan, we're super excited to be able to provide or invest approximately $46 million into Chicago businesses, into our business service organizations, our nonprofit organizations, as well as our commercial corridors. And so the way that we have divvied up this $46 million are in three categories. We have $18 million that will go towards supporting small businesses. That looks like capacity building for back office as well as technology. And we're looking to engage both for-profit businesses as well as business and economic development organizations to assist in administering this program. These capacity building supports may include technical assistance with either starting, growing, sustaining, or even transitioning businesses in our communities, while also supporting back office operations. And one of the things that we also want to support are businesses that are looking to do business with the city or any other governmental entity. And we're looking to release an RFP for these services in Q2, with the services being available for small business owners in Q3. Next, we have $18 million in support to nonprofits that are providing critical services in our neighborhoods. And we're looking to provide capacity building supports, which again may include technical assistance around starting, sustaining, and growing a nonprofit, applying for city contracts, and we're looking for the ability to have a flexible capacity building support to organizations that are looking to attain financial stability as well as scale their services. Very similar timeline to our support for small businesses. We're looking to have an RFP released in late Q1, Q2, with services to begin in Q3. And then finally, we will have $10 million in support allocated towards food equity. We're really excited about this initiative. And we're looking to fund three major activities. The first being a Good Food Fund, the second an incubator, and last Urban Ag. We've been very much focused on setting up our Good Food Fund which will provide grants and resources to small businesses, as well as food-based entrepreneurs here in Chicago. And we're working with a work group that will help us develop the framework. We anticipate that the release of the RFP will be available in Q2 and will close in Q3. And so in terms of support and help with putting an application together or just getting general support around the opportunities that were discussed today, BACP partners with about 65 different business service organizations throughout Chicago as a part of our Neighborhood Business Development Center program. And you can find more information about that program at the link listed below, chicago.gov/NBDC. Next slide. And we also partner with 8 different community-based organizations as well that will help businesses with the licensing process. So with all of the opportunities that you've heard today, some of the requirements are that businesses are licensed before you can even be considered a supplier with the city of Chicago. And so if you need help with that licensing process, we partner with 8 different business service organizations that are strategically located throughout the city that can help you navigate that process. And then finally, here at BACP, although we're not in person totally, we still provide support virtually for small business owners that need assistance with counseling. We partner with organizations like SCORE, as well as the Chicago Lawyers Committee Group and Allies for Community Business and Women's Business Development Center to provide support around access to capital. So as you're thinking about these opportunities, whether you're a nonprofit organization or you're a small business owner, these are amazing resources that can help you navigate the application process as well as help you with back office support. And just additional information about my department. Here's where we're located. We're in City Hall on the 8th floor. If you're interested in learning more about our department, please feel free to email the address listed here. We will add you to our newsletter. So as the opportunities that I discussed earlier, that $46 million and those 3 different buckets that I shared, we will be making sure that folks are aware of it in our newsletter, as well as on our social media account. So if we go to the next slide, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, any possible social media platform there is, we are on it. And we are very diligent and intentional in making sure that all of the opportunities that are available through our department will be shared through these outlets on the city's website, as well as on the newsletter if you choose to sign up for it. We'll take questions at the end of our session today, but now I am going to transition to my amazing colleague who is doing great work in the Department of Planning and Development, and she will talk about some of the great opportunities that they have available. Nina?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Kenya, for that amazing introduction. You too are awesome, and I really enjoy working with you and BACP on all of these things, including the Chicago Recovery Plan. I am Nina Moody. I'm an assistant commissioner with the Department of Planning and Development. For those of you who do not know what the planning department does, we are the chief planning agency in the city of Chicago, which means that we think about the comprehensive growth of both the city and its neighborhoods. We control the zoning and the land use policies throughout the city. And we also have many different economic development tools in our tool belt in order to help development, including TIF and the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. If we could go to the next set of slides here. Thank you. So I'm going to just give you an overview of, I'm sure that you've heard a lot about the Chicago Recovery Plan as a whole. We can go to the next slide, and the bigger picture. And so this is just kind of reiterating kind of like that bigger picture of all the different Chicago Recovery Plan funds happening throughout the city. And then here in this blue box, you'll see the 3 focus areas for the planning department specifically. And I'm going to go through each of those categories. We have about $237 million to distribute, which is really exciting. And we have some really dynamic programs that we hope to get off the ground and get back into to the community. You can go to the next slide. So one of our first programs, we have a community climate investment bucket of funds that we will be utilizing to help with neighborhood resiliency, talking about retrofitting certain neighborhood anchor buildings, some of them public, well, most of them being public, at least when it concerns DPD, doing more industrial solar projects. And then of course, that kind of community level climate adaptation is really important and something that will make our city more resilient. And so with this line of programming, you should be seeing more information coming out hopefully in the summer. But we are excited to get those programs off the ground. We are still in the programmatic planning phase for this set of programs, but excited to get that going. You can go to the next slide. This next set of funds, the small business and workforce support. So this is where we work really closely with BACP. We have a bucket of funds for commercial and neighborhood activation investments. So you may have heard of Pop Ports, which is a really exciting project for us to take a vacant lot and kind of utilize it for outdoor use for the public. And so we are actually going to be releasing a request for proposals for more projects like that to activate kind of like those outdoor vacant lots. They can be private, they can be publicly owned, or lots of different elements that are in that request for proposals. And that should be going out in the next week or so. So please be on the lookout at our website, and I'll reference the website at the end. And then we have our street ambassador program, which we're trying to create in order to facilitate safer environments on commercial corridors. And so more information will also be coming out about that. We are in the planning stage for that bucket of funds as well. Next slide. The community development bucket of funds, you probably have heard about this the most coming from our department, because we did release a community development grant, which I will actually go into more detail about after in this presentation. So we have our community development grants, which actually launched in late December, and our first round closed January 31st, but it's a rolling application. We have our vacant lot reduction resources. So we're looking at studying the environmental implications of some of our publicly owned lots, just to understand what the environmental cleanup looks like. And then also some beautification funds are also lumped in there. Our community wealth building pilot will look at different ways in which we can empower community members to have more community ownership models in their businesses. So we're really excited to get that off the ground, and that's also in the planning phase. And then our equitable transit oriented development grants. We actually did a pilot of this at the end of last year, and this money, this money from the federal government will help to expand that and enable more businesses to open up and be supported by transit. So we're also really excited about that. Go to the next slide. So I'm going to go more in detail about the community development grant, since that is a grant that we already currently have open. And so the purpose of this program is to expand DPD's investments and support catalytic development in throughout Chicago, to strengthen local corridors, enhance neighborhood vitality, and drive economic development, equitable economic development. We can go to the next slide. So the uses for these grants can be expansions or renovations for existing businesses. You can also have new locations for startup businesses or existing businesses if you would like to switch locations, and then also new construction on vacant properties. And so the grant amounts are, you can apply for up to $5 million, but there's a small grant check that's under $250,000, and then there's a large grant track that's $250,000 to $5 million. And so you do have to decide which track you'd like to apply for. You cannot apply for both, and your grant cannot be more than 75% of the total project cost. Okay, you can go to the next slide. So to be eligible, this application is open to anybody in commercial, mixed use, or light manufacturing projects, also business owners and entrepreneurs, property owners, and community developers, and then applicants from all over the city, which is different than our typical neighborhood opportunity fund. Eligible expenses include interior renovations, build outs for incoming businesses, if you need acquisition or site preparation, demolition, architectural engineering fees, if you need any roofing or facade improvements, mechanical systems, HVAC, and then also we'll cover security systems and ADA improvements. Go to the next slide. So the Chicago Recovery Plan is expanded beyond our normal kind of neighborhood opportunity fund. There's no locations that are limits to specific corridors. We are also taking light manufacturing, which is different than our other existing programs. And we're also taking mixed use residential projects. So if you have a building on a corridor with maybe some vacant commercial space at the bottom and maybe some vacant residential units at top, we will consider those in this grant making process. And then we're also taking vanilla box processes. So if you're like, I don't have a tenant yet, but I have a building and I want to get it ready for a tenant, we'll also take those. Go to the next. All right, so the project selection. So priority will be given to applicants that incorporate these three components. So it's a catalytic with a strong local impact. And so, that's very important for us. Again, these funds are supposed to be used in order to help revitalize areas that have been hit hard by COVID. And so we want to make sure that there's a catalytic impact. Projects located in historically disinvested areas and also build upon existing efforts like our Invest Southwest initiative or our community safety initiatives. Projects that demonstrate momentum and are expected to break ground in 2022. So we are prioritizing projects that just need that little bit of push, maybe need a little bit of funds, but that could break ground this year. And then site control is preferred, but not required. Again, it kind of goes into your readiness and if you're ready to break ground soon. We can go to the next slide. All right, so I'm going to try to breeze through this application process. So as I mentioned earlier, the first round has ended, but it's a rolling application. So the second round will end in March 10th. So you can still submit applications right now. And then of course, there's another round that will happen in the summer. The application just depends on, depending on if you want 250 and below or above, you'll go to our online portal and either use submittable or use an editable PDF. We are also in the process of making both of our applications available through submittable, which will be easier for applicants. But right now, this is how we have it set up, but those improvements are coming. Go to the next. So small grants, like I said, there's an application portal. It's already opened in January, and it's a rolling application. You can access it at chicago.gov/SHI recovery grants, and you can go there. You can fill out the project assessment, and then the other PDF application is posted online. And if you go to that website, you'll be able to find the links to both of them. The next. Again, the other application is in an editable PDF, but same system, it comes directly to us and we will be upgrading that application soon. Just make sure you read the directions really carefully in order to make sure that you have all the correct attachments. Next. If you have more questions about this, you can go to the Community Development Grant Resources page, and there's other materials and things there to answer questions. We have an FAQ also on the Chicago Recovery Plan Development Grant page website, which I know is a mouthful. So there's an FAQ there. We are constantly updating it with your questions. And then if you have any questions that are not answered there, you can email us directly at dpd@cityofchicago.org, and then we'll get back to you within a few business days.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nina, for your presentation. Lots of helpful information. I know we're talking about some programs that are in the pipeline, but you guys have hit the ground running in terms of ARP and have a ton of opportunities that are available now. So I hope that our audience found that to be very helpful. So now we are going to pivot to our cousins in the county. Sochi Flores, as well as Irene Scher, will share some opportunities from the Bureau of Economic Development at the county. Thank you guys so much for joining us.
Thank you, Kenya. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sochi Flores, and I am the Chief of the Cook County Bureau of Economic Development. I am excited to be with you today and proud of the collaborative efforts of the city, the state, and the county in making today's summit happen. We all know that the road to an equitable recovery requires this level of very strong collaboration and commitment from all levels of government. And although it is a very heavy lift, we all understand that to maximize the impact of this historic level of funding, we need all levels of government, of philanthropy, and our private sector partners sharing our collective expertise, leveraging our resources, and coordinating our efforts across the board. Next slide, please. The Cook County Bureau of Economic Development's mission is to lead and promote equitable economic growth and community development. Many people do not know what the Bureau of Economic Development does, so I just wanted to highlight that our Bureau includes the Office of Economic Development, Planning and Development, Building and Zoning, and the Zoning Board of Appeals. And it offers a wide range of programs to drive sustained economic growth and promote vibrant community development. Cook County is the second largest county in the US, and our Bureau coordinates closely with over 130 municipalities, including the city of Chicago. We serve as strategic advisors. We leverage our funding with other governmental entities to make sure that our dollars grow. And we convene municipalities and other stakeholders to collaborate around shared initiatives like today's summit. Next slide, please. For 2022, Cook County will be investing almost $100 million to support residents and businesses equitably recover from this pandemic. With this historic level of resources, Cook County has prioritized advancing equity, systems change, and impact. Combined, we know that the city, county, and state will invest over $10 billion to build a more inclusive and stronger region. This morning, you heard about the county's overall approach, as well as what it takes to access these funds. And during today's session, you will hear a bit more about the programs that the county has to support our local small businesses and also residents. Next slide, please. Our Bureau will use nearly a third of the county's 2022 American Rescue Plan Act ARPA dollars to support investments in the Vital Communities policy pillar. That includes support for small businesses, critical household assistance and social services. We will be providing targeted relief to hard-hit sectors and also have many programs to address housing needs and workforce development. We have anchored our work with a commitment to equity, have leveraged partnerships with many of the region's leading economic development, housing, and social service organizations in the development of these initiatives, because we know that we cannot do this alone. This slide here depicts the level of funding allocated to each of our strategic areas of work. Programs funded under ARPA will build on the infrastructure we developed over the last 18 months, with a focus now on shifting from relief to sustainability, future-proofing the economy, and really catalyzing transformative impact. And we will only be able to do that with these strong collaborations, such as the one that we have here with the City of Chicago. I'm now going to turn it over to my Deputy Bureau Chief, Irene Scher, who will speak to you a bit about our small business recovery efforts. Irene?
Hello. Oops. Sorry, I'm having trouble undoing the video if it seems to be locked.
And we can hear you though, Irene. There we go.
Okay.
You're good.
Good afternoon, everybody. And we can move on to the next slide. So here is our small business agenda. And wait 1 sec, sorry about that. Small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and they're a major source of employment, as well as providing critical goods and services throughout the region. In 2020, Cook County completed an assessment of the small business ecosystem with a focus on suburban Cook. We wanted to understand what resources existed to assist small businesses. And as a result of that, we learned that although there were resources in the suburbs and resources in the city that serve the suburbs as well as the city, there were real voids. So we began to develop a suite of programs and services to support small businesses. Building on the programs we developed in response to COVID in 2020, in 2022, the county wants to build on this and play an increasingly active role in the region's small business ecosystem. Our agenda for the coming year includes development of a Cook County one-stop shop, which we're going to call the Cook County Small Business Source. It will offer business advising services to businesses on a one-on-one basis. Grants will be made available later this year to continue to assist small businesses adjust to the lingering impact of COVID, because every time we think it's gone, it comes back. And in addition, we will be providing increased continued targeted support to businesses in the south suburbs of Cook County. These near-term programs will also facilitate business growth and sustainability for early stage businesses formed since the onset of COVID. We will be providing grants, small grants to these businesses, coupled with advising services through our small business program. And these grants will also be made available later in the year. Next slide. And as I think may have been mentioned at lunch, Cook County partnered with a broad range of partners, including the Chicago Community Trust and the Fund for Equitable Resources, as well as a network of small business service organizations to develop what became our network of small business service organizations. And the slide highlights the mix of partners we had in 2020. The strength of our program stems from the dynamic mix of partners, and we believe that we are better together. All the businesses in Cook County, both in the city and the suburbs, are welcome to apply for small business advising services. Our network is something we hope to build on and grow, and we will be soliciting additional partners later in 2022. To access our free small business advising services, businesses can simply go to Cook County Small Biz, BIZ.org, and enter their name, and they will be matched with one of our providers that meets their needs. As mentioned, we will be developing the grant programs in the next coming months, so stay tuned for more information about that. Next slide. We also recognize that some sectors of the economy have been particularly hard hit by COVID, which is why we have a separate set of programs to specifically support the recovery of the tourism, hospitality, and creative industries. We also will be launching some new manufacturing resources to help manufacturers remain competitive by providing advising services and assessments to support investments in technology and development of new supply chains. Information about these programs will also be made available later in the year. Next slide. And thank you all for being here today. We want to stay in touch. Please contact us through the resources that are on the slide, as well as others that have been made available to you today. Thank you. And I think it's back to Sochi.
Thank you, Irene. I think we will hand it back over to Kenya.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Such a wealth of information from Sochi and Irene on the work that you guys have been doing over the past couple of years to support our small business ecosystem, working with partners, providing grants directly to business owners has just been amazing, and making sure that these businesses that are pillars in our community, that they are sustained and that we're starting to see growth. And so we appreciate all of the amazing work that you all have done. And we're just thrilled for the partnership and the collaboration that the city has with the county. And we look forward to our continued partnership with you as we look to transform many of our communities, many of our neighborhoods, leveraging the funding from ARP. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity to truly make investments into our neighborhoods, into our small businesses. And we're super happy to do this work alongside you all, and most importantly, alongside many of our partners that are joining us today for today's conversation. We have one more speaker from the state of Illinois. I believe he's running just a little bit late. Deputy Director Jonathan McGee. But while we wait for Jonathan, I think what we can do is start to answer maybe some of the questions that have popped up in the Q&A. One question that I saw someone asked about licensing. This is why I had to explain what BACP is. I know it's just a mystery what we do here. And so again, we wear many hats. We're the regulatory arm for the city. We're responsible for ensuring that businesses are compliant and that we're also protecting our consumers as well as our employees. But the other side of our hat is that we have a small business center here in Chicago in City Hall where we license about 60,000 businesses annually. And so there are businesses based upon their activity that may require that they have a city license. And so I encourage you guys, if you're unsure whether or not your business activity requires a license, check out our website. We'll make sure to put the link in the chat. There are some businesses that require a city license and a state license, some that just simply require a state license, such as daycare centers, lawyers, dentists, and then there are some that require a license with our Department of Buildings. And so we know that sometimes that can be a little bit unclear, but we want to make sure that as you guys are starting to think about these opportunities and engaging the city, whether you're a nonprofit organization looking to help us do this work along the way, or you're a small business owner and you're looking to be a supplier, before we let these RFPs, we want to make sure that you have all of your paperwork and your documentation in order. While I missed the conversation that the Donors Forum had during the lunch hour, I hope that some of you guys were able to attend, because ensuring that you have that foundation will make sure that you're set up for success when these opportunities are available and that you don't have to backtrack. Coming in a few months, we will be providing more opportunities for capacity building and just sharing information. We want to ensure that our small businesses and our organizations have access to partner with us, and that some of the things that, again, that are key to engaging with the city, that you've done that work and that you have your documentation in order to participate. And so, Travis, if we wanted to pivot towards the questions, I will just start reading them off, if that's okay, while we wait for Jonathan.
Yes, that would be great.
Awesome. So I think a lot of these questions, Nina, and I think we have one other person available from DPD, are about the Chicago Recovery Plan. So that means that people are really excited about this opportunity. They feel like it's something that that they could potentially partner and be a part of. So one of the questions that we have is, can the recovery plan funding be used to rehab facilities for nonprofits?
So any entity can apply as long as they meet the project eligibility. And so remember, these are community development grants meant to stimulate economic development. So just be mindful of that as you're applying, because if it doesn't actually create catalytic economic development, right? There's social services and there's economic development. I just wanted to make sure that that's very clear. But of course, nonprofits can apply if they have a project that's eligible.
Awesome. That's helpful. So that key word is economic catalytic development. Like when you're thinking about your proposal, when you're putting together that scope of work and you're trying to figure out what will the outcome be for the money that I'm asking for, does it answer that question? And so that's a great lens in which people should be thinking about when they're putting together their proposals. And just one more time, what is the next deadline for that, Nina?
Yeah, so the next deadline is March 10th. It is a rolling deadline. And if your application doesn't get chosen the first time, it doesn't mean you have to reapply. We're evaluating them on a rolling basis. So it just depends on how you score. And if you end up scoring high, then we will consider you. And then I also just want to say, back to the nonprofit question, it's not that DPD doesn't care about social services. There are other departments throughout the city who have funds to support social services. So I just want to be clear that the community development grant is to help with economic development.
Yeah, thank you for that. And just really quickly, someone else had a question about capital funding for shelters. So it's my understanding, I don't have the full scope, it's just something that I heard just from our colleagues in the Department of Family and Support Services. In Track A is focused on community services, and that's where we have our colleagues from the Department of Family and Support Services, which supports the operational expenses for many of our emergency homeless shelters. So if you're looking for additional information around social services, that is also in Track A. As a reminder, all of these sessions are recorded. In addition to that, all of our decks will be available after today's event. And I also want to put a pin. This is not the only time that we are going to be partnering with, pulling together our partners from the county and the state. Like, we are in this together. We are cousins in this work. And we want to make sure that you all, our partners that are in community, have the information around the things that we're looking to do as it relates to our ARP. We want this to be a success, but we can't do it without you. And so we're happy that you guys are along with us for this journey. And so it's my understanding that Jonathan has now joined. We're super excited to have Deputy Director of the Illinois Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity on the call. Jonathan has been in this role for a while, doing great work up and down the state. He'll share a little bit about some of the work that they already have in the hopper, but then also some of their plans for ARP. Jonathan, are you able to turn your camera on so that we can see you?
Yes, so having a bit of technical difficulties. Can folks see me now?
Yes, we can see you.
Awesome. So sorry, I am on my phone, as you all know, Zoom challenges, but appreciate you all for joining us today. And I'm so excited to talk about what the state of Illinois has for businesses, communities, and workers through our ARPA funds. And so we can move forward with the slide deck. So looking forward to talking about some of the programs that we have today. So really quick, and you can move to the next slide really quick. So I just want to talk a little bit about our technical assistance efforts and what we have for businesses and folks that are really trying to figure out, right? Like, how do I actually tap into these funds? How do I tap into these resources? You're probably hearing a ton today about programs, incentives, and grants and loans, and you're just like, where do I really start? And so this slide really shows you my information and my Northeast Regional Manager's information, in which we can provide technical assistance, which basically means we can help you walk through applications, walk through programs and eligibility rules. And so I want to emphasize that, because in a lot of ways, we always talk about what's available, but we don't talk about how we're going to help you get there and take advantage of it. And so I wanted to start off with that slide and share with you all. Next slide. So many of you all know we had our Back to Business grant program that has in fact closed. But however, we will be planning to roll out $50 million in startup capital for businesses that started in 2020. So right now we're finding an administrator, but once we find an administrator, the goal will be to launch this program and provide that relief for businesses that we know started during a pandemic and really have not been made whole. And so wanted to share that with you as well. Additional funds include our small business SSBCI funding that we have as well. So many of you all, if you're not familiar with SSBCI, that's our state small business credit initiative. And what that means is that in a lot of ways, we have funding to help incentivize banks to provide capital specifically to minority-owned businesses and businesses across the state. And so we have banking partners. And we have folks that we enroll as lenders, in which then they actually provide potential loans, and then we help subsidize that. And so with the new ARPA funds, this fund is going to be exacerbated, even larger, right? And so when you think about funding, access to capital, job creation, this is what you should think. And this is the program that is set up for you. In addition to that, we have a variety of other programs that we will be rolling out as well. And that includes, our regional economic development planning dollars, as well as other funding that we have around job training and economic development. And so just wanted to give you all a broad scope of what's coming down the pike. But more importantly, the goal here for this conversation is to say, connect with my team, connect with me, connect with our regional economic development folks, as well as our navigators, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Next slide. So again, we talked about small business resources, right? And so in a lot of ways, many folks, especially small businesses, you lack the capacity, you lack the technical assistance sometimes. And so our small business
Yeah, sorry, I keep pressing keys.
Sorry, someone.
I can keep moving forward.
Travis, can you mute Aaron?
Folks, mute, please. Sorry. Okay. Thank you for that. Apologies. Our small business development centers are really aimed at helping to help you with that business plan, to help you connect with resources. So you want to contract with state government or you want to export. In a lot of ways, when we think about minority-owned businesses and businesses that have been disproportionately impacted by the system, we don't even think about incentives and tax credits and exporting and all of those different items. And so our small business development centers, our procurement technical assistance centers, our international trade centers are all key in that. And so again, just wanted to share with you all that resource as well and hope that you take advantage of it. Next slide. So again, I talked about SSBCI. The Fund for Advancement for Minority Enterprises is, again, a participating loan program. So if you're a small business, a small minority-owned business, veteran-owned, women-owned, Latinx, AAPI, Native American, you name it, you are eligible to apply for this program as long as you're creating jobs. And as long as you're actually trying to make a significant investment. And this is key because in a lot of ways, I hear from businesses all the time, I want to grow. A bank won't give me a loan. Well, this is the program where the state will come with you. We'll walk with you and we'll say, hey, what can we do to get you to a yes, right? And so in a lot of ways, just want to make sure you all are aware and make sure that you all take advantage of this program. Next slide. So I talked about trade and investment. Again, exporting specifically is disproportionately impacted in the Black and brown communities and the minority communities in terms of entrepreneurship. And when you think about your product, whether you're a manufacturer, whether you're a retailer, you're a distributor, you look at it, there's a whole global market that exists for you. And in a lot of ways, COVID-19 has showed us that the internet, right, virtual has made it where we can make sure that we can increase our capital and pivot in a way that can make sure that we're sustainable for the future. And so our Office for Trade of Investment, our international trade centers are designed to ensure that businesses, specifically businesses of color and folks that have been disenfranchised, can actually get those resources and support that they need. Next slide. So again, if you didn't already have enough assistance, I am very proud to talk about our Community Navigator program. And the reason why I'm proud to talk about this is because these are folks that you trust. These are folks that are in your community. And so across 102 counties, 6,000 municipalities, we funded over 130 organizations to provide that technical assistance, to help you with whatever you need by way of state and federal resources, as well as local resources. So I'm sure Kenya talked about what the city has. I'm sure the counties talked about what they have. And now the state has talked about what we have. We have an abundance of resources to help you really weave through and navigate all of this complex, stuff, right? That in a lot of ways, it makes sense, but it doesn't. And so what the Navigator program has done is we're doing door knocking. We're going to the communities. We've reached over 130,000 businesses to date, and we look forward to reaching more. And as we reach out about different programs, as we flag this for you all, our navigators really are there to give you that white glove customer service. And that's the key. And that's the linchpin of this. And to be clear, the Biden administration noted this model as a successful model. The Small Business Administration has navigators as well, which you should tap into as well. And so again, this is a resource we've extended. We're going to continue to fund it. And we hope that you tap into it. And if folks are interested in being a navigator, definitely let us know and reach out to myself or my team. And we're happy to address that. Next slide. So I just want to talk a little bit about BEP because I know my folks CMS aren't on the call. Again, the state of Illinois spends a tremendous amount of money every year. And as taxpayers, what we want to do is figure out how do we help you all tap into those resources, right? But you can't tap into the resources if you're not prepared to. So right now we're making you aware of the resources. What I'm going to talk about in a little bit is how you get prepared. And so if you look at the next slide, it'll talk about how we're preparing businesses to actually take advantage of resources through not just our BEP program, but through any resource in the state. So I'm sure you've heard about GATA, the Government Accountability and Transparency Act. The next thing you should hear about is BEP. And again, I think the key here is that if you want to actually be able to take advantage of resources, these are the things that we need. Next slide. So again, as you can see, these are some of the vendor requirements. These are some of the items that we need to determine that you are an MBE, you are a WBE, you are a DBE. And again, I want to emphasize this. We've got the city and we've got the county on the call. We have a fast track program with the city and the county. So essentially, if you are a certified vendor with the city or the county on this call, you can get certified with the state within 1 to 7 days. So there's no reason, right, why anybody that's certified with the city or certified with the county shouldn't be certified with the state. And so I want to make that clear because, again, while we talk about the funding that government spends, we also have a small business set-aside program that's ran through the chief procurement officer of the state. In addition to that, every grant that we put out that's infrastructure has a BEP goal. And the key here is that folks can't meet that goal if you're not certified. So you can have a minority contractor, right, working on your project, but if they aren't BEP certified, we won't get credit. And so I just really want to emphasize this because when we talk about all these federal resources, all of them have percentage goals and minority spend goals. And that's why we're here getting you all ready today. Next slide. So again, you can see some of the organizations, right, that accept BEP certification and work with BEP certified organizations. Again, the hosts of this call can speak to all of the opportunities that we have. But the key here is that making sure that you get ready and stay ready so that when these opportunities come, you don't have to worry about scrambling to make sure you can prepare. Next slide. So again, my call for you all, my ask is that you continue to invest in Illinois, you continue to grow in Illinois, you continue to stay in Illinois. And we only scratched the surface in this presentation in terms of what we have to offer at DCO. ARPA is just one vein. We have 11 bureaus. My bureau is one of many. And so really the goal here is to get you all to engage with us, connect with our team, join our newsletters, join our listservs. Talk to us about what you're trying to achieve. And our goal is to make that a reality. And so with that, I appreciate everyone here on the call. I'm excited about potential questions and I'm looking forward to seeing my inbox flooded with requests. So thank you all so much and appreciate you all for having me today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for hopping on and providing this amazing overview of what's happening at the state. So for our participants, we are so grateful that you guys were able to join us today. You've heard from the city, you've heard from myself, you've heard from my amazing colleague, Nina, you've heard from the amazing team at the county, and of course, you've heard from Jonathan. We've got a lot of great questions in the Q&A. I think our team is going through answering those from the county as well as from our department. And so hopefully we'll be able to get to most of the questions. We have a very tight timeline here. We'll try and get to as many questions as possible, but just know that if we didn't get to your question, we'll make sure that we get a response to you. In terms of just what's next, I want to be clear around what's happening in the other tracks, as well as what we have planned for the rest of the day for this track. So after our conversation here, we will be pivoting to housing. And so we have our Department of Housing that will be joining us and providing an overview of the opportunities that are in the pipeline for their department. And then they will be followed by our arts team, and they'll be talking about opportunities that are available in the arts. So that's to come in this track. There are 2 other tracks that are happening simultaneously. Track A is community services, and that's where we have our team from the county and the state, as well as the city, providing an overview of social services as well as health. Then we'll also have some team members in that providing an overview of violence prevention. So just want to make sure that people are aware that's happening in Track A. And Track B, we have our transportation, infrastructure, and sustainability team. We have the Department of Transportation talking about opportunities that are happening there. Really important work that's happening, particularly in aviation, and the Department of Transportation with the infrastructure bill. So lots of great information there for many of our businesses. We'll have someone from the Department of Water, and then we'll have the mayor's chief sustainability officer talking about environment, and sustainability. So that is track B. So track A, community services, track B, transportation, infrastructure, and sustainability. And then our track will follow up with housing and arts next. And so we were supposed to end at 3. So we'll try and quickly maybe take a few questions, Travis, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I don't want him to get like the stick and pull me out of my office and take me off the Zoom. So we'll just answer.
I wouldn't dream of it.
Only a few questions we'll get to, and then we'll move to our colleagues in housing who are waiting in the wings. So lots of questions about the slides. So guys, just really quickly, in the right-hand corner of your Zoom should be a view. You should be able to change that so that you're maybe take it off of presenter view or speaker view, and you should be able to expand the slides. Jonathan, lots of folks want to partner with you. The question that I see here a couple of times is, how can people become a community navigator?
So that's a great question. Thank you for that. So, when we rolled this program out, we had allowed for a lot of our grantees to select who that they wanted to work with them on the ground. The goal is that ultimately we're going to have another opportunity for communities that are interested and organizations that are interested to join the program. However, if there is, a need, right, and there is, a place that you serve and that you believe that there's a value that you can add, please flag that for us, because, there is potentially an opportunity for us moving forward to think about, how do we weave folks in and how do we create additional opportunities? And so I think the short answer is reach out to us, let us know what you can do in the areas that you cover, and then we can work with you from there.
Awesome. Thank you for that. And then there is a request for just contact information. If you want to put that in the chat, Jonathan, where people can either reach you or your team or find out additional information around how to partner with the state, that would be helpful.
Couple things. I'll jump in here because I'm not afraid to tell my email. So Jonathan McGee, so Jonathan, JONATHAN .McGee, MCGEE @illinois.gov. Also, you can go to the Illinois Department of Commerce's website and go to the Regional Economic Development page, and you have my team's information there, where you can reach out to us, both phone numbers and email. So I am very reachable. I look forward to chatting with all of you all, and I'm excited to see so many people on this call interested in community and economic development.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. And one quick question before we wrap up. There are a couple of questions about advances. For those that have been partnering with the city, we used to do advances probably like 10, 15 years ago. And so now we're exploring the advance process this year. And I believe there was a conversation around what that process will look like in an earlier session held by the city's budget director, as well as the city's comptroller. So definitely more information around how that is applicable to the different ARP programs to come. But yes, the city is definitely looking to do advances in the near future, particularly around ARP. And so Soshi and Jonathan, I'm not quite sure if you all have an advance process that you can maybe talk a little bit about that.
I was going to jump in. I'm just going to speak for DCEO. I'm not going to speak for the whole state, but the way that we do it at DCEO is once you've been awarded a grant, you've received a notice of state award. What we will then ask you for is a budget, right? And so what we'll say is that we'll give you kind of a percentage of that budget in advance, up to 2 months of what expenses would be, right? So in a lot of ways, if you want an advance, what we need to know from you is what's your budget? What's needed for 2 months of expenses. And so, we've done the percentage model in the past. And what we found was that many folks, didn't really know. And so we wanted to, or it wasn't enough. And so we wanted to make sure we get it right. And so whether it's $1 million or it's $200,000, once you receive that notice of state award and you execute your grant agreement, we then will allow for you to process your advance. And I will say for each organization on here, if you're not registered to get direct deposit with the state, you should do so with the comptroller's office, because that'll make sure you get your money quicker. Otherwise, we have to mail you a check. So that's how it works with DCEO. I'm not sure with the county.
Yeah, and terms of the county, we do not do advances, but are working with our partners to make sure that we're increasing capacity. And that's across the board. This is a new initiative with the city, county, and the state, looking to be very deliberate in our efforts to increase capacity within our partners that we want to help grow.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So just a couple of recaps here. Guys, many of the projects that fall under BACP, we will have those available on the city's Chicago Recovery Plan website. A lot of those activities will happen in Q2, Q3. DPD has an amazing program that's already open, but similar to them, projects related to ARP are in the hopper. Lots of support and programs that are also in the hopper with the county as well as the state, and existing programs that are available and for you guys to start to access right now. Want to give a huge shout out to all of our speakers. This is the first time that we've all been together on the same platform. I'm a fan of all of the work that happens at the county and the state, and looking forward to future collaborations around making our city, our county, and our state better. So thank you guys to all of our partners that presented today. I am now getting a little bit of a hook from Travis that we have to wrap up. We will now move to housing. We'll take maybe a little bit of a 1 to 2 minute break if there are others that want to kind of pivot to other sessions. Next, we will have housing. And guys, we have a dynamic colleague, Brian, who is a managing deputy commissioner at housing, who will provide an overview of, again, some of the work that they're currently doing, most importantly, what they have in the hopper for ARP. So we'll take a little bit of a 2 minute break. Other sessions that are happening at this time: in transportation, infrastructure, and sustainability, we have our colleague that is talking about what the Department of Water and Management will be doing with ARP. And then we have our colleague from the Department of Family Support Services and our partner from Chicago Cook County Workforce Board. And then we have someone from the state. And I want to say someone else from the county on the homeless services side that will be providing an overview of work that they're doing related to workforce development, youth development, senior, and homeless services. So that's track A. And then again, track B is water management. And in a minute, we will be having our colleague from housing to present. Thank you guys so much for attending this session. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Now that we're back from a break, we're super excited to restart with colleagues from one of my favorite departments here in the city of Chicago, the Department of Housing. We're super excited to have Commissioner Navarro as well as Managing Deputy Commissioner Brian Essenberg here to join us to share some of the amazing work that they've been doing related to housing, as well as what's in the pipeline for ARP. I think you guys, if you haven't been following the Department of Housing and many of the initiatives that they've launched over the past year, you are in for a treat. And so with that, I won't belabor this introduction. We'll go ahead and we will get started with Commissioner Navarro and Managing Deputy Commissioner Brian.
Thank you, Kenya. Appreciate the warm welcome and great to be here with all of you today. I know we'll be joined from colleagues from the state as well in a bit. So I'm very excited to walk through this with you. I will give kind of an overview of what we do and what we're about, and then I'll turn it over to Managing Deputy Essenberg, who's going to talk about the particular opportunity within the Chicago Recovery Plan. So we can jump to the next slide. That would be great. So first, just quickly, what is the Department of Housing? Our mission is to expand access and choice for residents and protect their right to quality homes that are affordable, safe, and healthy. And our vision is that there's an equitable distribution of housing resources across all 77 communities. So that's not where we are today as a city. That's our vision. And we're taking a lot of steps to try to get there. Just to give you a sense of where the work that we do separate from the Chicago Recovery Plan, and then we will dive into CRP specifically. But so in the past year, in 2021, we committed over $250 million to support about 5,800 units of affordable housing. And mainly that's done in three main buckets. So we have the creation and preservation of affordable rental housing. So we do that with the use of low-income housing tax credits primarily and other resources to both rehab existing and create new affordable units. We also support and promote homeownership. We assist over 400 households in homeownership every year. We think it's an important part of our communities. And then we work to improve and preserve homes that already exist. So we want to keep folks in their homes as long as possible. We want to provide the repairs that they need to do so, things of that nature. And we also preserve buildings that have may have become troubled and may have become a challenge for a community. And we work to get those back into the hands of solid owners who can rehab them and bring them back to a great and affordable use in a community. So for 2022, we have similar, that work continues, and our staff that are focused on that continue to do that great work. But we also received almost $200 million in additional resources through the Chicago Recovery Program. So Brian's going to tell you more about that. Next slide. I'll just once more just remind, these are kind of our existing tools, and they again fall into three main buckets. So we create and preserve affordable rental units, we improve and preserve homes, we promote home ownership. We help, and we do that in a couple of ways. We help developers to build affordable homes. So we subsidize the construction of the home. We provide grants and loans. We do things like make sure that there are affordable units within market rate developments. And we assist along with the Department of Planning and Development with land and building acquisition to get to that point. We provide grants and loans to homeowners to stay in their homes and make needed repairs. We help to create homes that are more energy efficient, address maintenance needs. And we also provide a lot of funding to groups that provide homeownership counseling to help people get in the right homes for them and stay in their homes as long as possible. And then again, on the buying and renting homes, we provide a lot of tools to ensure that we can get people into homes, provide the counseling on the front end, and to develop rental housing. So that's a quick peek at our tools. We also have a policy shop. We have a community engagement and racial equity shop. These are all things that we do on a regular basis. And we wanted to start with this because Chicago Recovery Plan dollars that we've received really double down on a lot of this work and allow us to do a lot more. It's not that it's necessarily different work than we already do, but it allows us to deepen it and expand it greatly. With that, I'll turn it over to Brian Essenberg on the next slide to run through the opportunities that we do have through the Chicago Recovery Plan.
Great. Well, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Kenya, as well as to our colleagues at the state and the county for participating and helping us set this up. This is a really exciting opportunity for us to really just engage and let everyone know about the resources that we have available, but two, really what we're looking for and the help that we need. And so just as an overview and can combine with what the Commissioner was saying, in that creation of affordable rental units, what we're really talking about under the Chicago Recovery Plan is $75 million that we received for mixed use development and $65 million for permanent supportive housing. And then when we start talking about how we improve and preserve homes, we have $12 million for the acquisition and renovation of small and medium-sized multifamily buildings and single-family homes. And then we have $18 million for homeowner repairs or owner-occupant repairs, as well as another $15 million for owner-occupied energy improvements. And then lastly, in coordination in terms of how we promote homeownership, we have a kind of a special initiative where we have $6 million to help clean up and site prep and deal with remediation issues so we can prepare vacant land for single family new construction. And married with that is also $5 million to help with purchase assistance. I want to really quickly also give out a little nod of support to our colleagues over at Water and over at Health. The CRP program includes $47 million for lead abatement work, which is actually going to be handled by our colleagues at Department of Health. But those are for homes that have been troubled and found with lead issues. And so they have a pathway to get that resolved. And then there's additional $13 million for water reconnects and really dealing with that infrastructure underground side of it. So next slide, please. So at the Department of Housing, one of the initiatives that we push forward with this multifamily is we have a biannual funding rounds. And we just announced in December $1 billion with affordable housing developments. And that $75 million really feeds into that. And the help that we need, what we're looking for now is really general contractors to perform that work. And separately, we're also looking for developers to help us do permanent supportive housing. And so if you're a general contractor and you're looking to get into larger multifamily development, we were very interested in hearing from you. We require all of these developments to get 3 competitive bids. So there's still opportunities to get involved. That pipeline that we announced, that $1 billion pipeline, is really for 22, 23, and parts of 24. So that work is ongoing, that need is ongoing. I can't say that enough. And so please reach out to our colleague, Lisa Lewis, if you're interested, particularly if you're a minority or BIPOC owned general contractor, that is definitely of interest. We don't have enough, and we're always looking for more. If we move over to that next box of acquisition and renovation of single family and multifamily, this is work that we're doing all the time. And there is never enough developers and contractors to do this work. We have a fair share of problem buildings in the city. And what this resource does is it helps us help you acquire and develop those buildings. And so we're looking for twofold: groups that can help us with that door-to-door engagement, identification of buildings, and kind of the more community engagement side. So all of you nonprofits that are out there that have problem buildings in your neighborhoods and you want to get involved, this is a great way to do that. And then separately, if you're a developer or a small contractor that's interested in small development, we have programs that can provide access to credit as well as this one, which will give you some assistance to help acquire and take down those buildings. So we know the market's hot right now. We know it's difficult. We know stuff is priced high. That's what these resources are there for. So please reach out to Willie Edwards at cityofchicago.org if you're interested in being a developer or working on small building acquisition programs. Moving to the third box, our homeowner repair program. That's really where we need a lot of help and assistance. And what we're doing in this situation is we're helping owners deal with deferred maintenance and repairs to their homes. And we're looking for contractors that really want to go through that. And what we do in this situation is there's a bit of hand-holding. We're dealing with owners that are in a situation where they need some trust and they need to trust the people they're working with, and we provide that. And in that, and I'll go into a little bit more detail later, but in that, we are again looking for that outreach part. How do we find them? How do we find people that need help? And secondly, who are the contractors that are doing the work? And so we work with administrators that will then manage the contractor pools. We're still trying to build that out. So if you were contractors that do owner-occupant repairs, which is different than a developer, you do porch repairs, roof repairs, facade improvement repairs. If you're a sub that specializes in those repairs, we definitely want to hear from you. And Travis Kluska, if you can reach out to him, he'll put you onto the track. And that work is ongoing. We're going to be trying to ramp up with applications when it's the winter season to do the work in the warm season, but there's a constant flow of that work. And then lastly, we're going to be sending out some information where you can reach out. If you have special skills in terms of remediation and environmental testing, keep an eye out for small RFPs or reach out to me directly. And then we'll move over to the next slide, please. So as a way of just helping understand how to work with us and the type of way we're expecting to work with you, under our multifamily development deals, we host a funding round at the city. We award to a developer, and that developer is then required to get 3 competitive bids. That's the access point that we're trying to fill right now. We're trying to get contractors into the place where these deals have money. These are funded and they're going to close. This is real deals with real jobs. We'll move on to the next slide. Under our acquisition and renovation programs, what we often do is we work with an administrator, and that administrator then goes and finds both the people who benefit from the program as well as the people to perform the work under the program. And so in this situation, they essentially manage and find that pool of developers. So we are looking for you to essentially engage with our administrators. They'll help identify properties, but I also encourage and want you to go find your own properties. And then it's really a split between for sale or for rent, depending on what we do. And all that stuff we can work through and talk through. So the key now is if you want to be a developer or you're a small contractor that wants to get into development or small rental property management, this is the place for you. And Will Edwards is your person for contact. And going to that last program slide real quick. Next slide. On the owner occupant repairs, same structure. The city essentially works with an administrator. Often it's a nonprofit entity. We're going through a bidding process right now to try to identify someone. And they're going to help us find the residents who benefit from the owner occupied repairs. And again, I'm looking for essentially that GC and subpool. Who's going to go do that work? We need people that want to work with us, that want to work with owners to go get those repairs done to their homes. And essentially what will happen is that resident will engage in business with you. We guarantee that payment to you and from them and the whole 9 yards. So think of us as kind of a third party closing entity in some aspect. And so we'll go over to that next slide. And it's just a way to wrap up. Just want to offer some general tips. The pre-bid proposal conference offers and asks and provides lots of information. So if there's an official bidding conference, I encourage you to do it. You must register in advance. You have to register on the iSupplier portals. And often, we're government. If we have checklists and we have things we need you to submit, I need you to submit them. You got to fill out the applications. You got to do it completely and quickly. And access to credit is something that we're always trying to wrestle with. So currently programs are on reimbursement, but you hear through our partners, there are opportunities to try to do some additional ways to move money forward. We have programs that offer access to credit to help facilitate our programs. Don't let that be your barrier. Let's start talking about how we get you involved before you worry about how you can't get involved. On the technology side, though, we are moving to technology-based platforms. We do need you to be proficient. We do need to know that you can actually engage with our staff through technology. And so, and a lot of this does get to compliance and paperwork. And so we do need to know that you have that ability, or you can reach out. And so that's real quickly moving to those last couple of comments. We love to work with teams. If you don't have the experience you think you need, build a team. We want to help you build capacity to work with programs. We have programs that start very small, building a porch, all the way up to redeveloping a single family home, to building an apartment building, to building new construction. There's a pathway to growth here, and we want to help people get there because we're always trying to build new affordable product. And really on the real estate side, and kind of as a final thing, one, we're always looking for people to engage locally. We need people that work within the existing fabric. The housing counseling agencies are community partners. So please, if you're into that, that's a great sign. And then, with anything, if we're getting into dirt, environmental testing is always kind of a challenge, soil testing, remediation, the whole 9 yards. If you know about those things, great. If you don't, we're happy to walk you through it. And so I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. A lot of information, a lot of great work that you guys are doing in communities around Chicago. So thank you for that brief overview. And for those that have questions related to the presentation, we ask that you put them in the Q&A, and we'll either answer them in the Q&A or at the end of the presentation, we'll answer them. And so next we will have our colleagues from the Department of Housing with Cook County, that's housed under the Cook County's Bureau of Economic Development, a part of Soshi's team. You guys heard from her related to small businesses. And so now we'll hear from her team, Susan Campbell, as well as Dominic, that will provide an overview of the great work that they're doing at the county level. Soshi, did you want to open it up before you pass it on to your team members?
Yep, just quickly, because I think that we probably have had other people joining us as they hop from one track to another. I just quickly wanted to refresh for those who are new to this track that the Cook County Bureau of Economic Development's mission is to lead and promote equitable economic growth and community development. So our focus is across all of Cook County, helping both residents and businesses. So I wanted just to state that because we are coordinating across 130 municipalities. Our goal really is to leverage our funding to make sure that government entities across the board maximize the impact of whatever funds we have available. So it's really exciting to hear of the great programs that the city of Chicago is deploying, and we look forward to continuing to work together to figure out how we maximize the benefit to our residents. So with that, I am going to introduce my colleague, Susan Campbell. She is the director of our Department of Planning and Development, and she will be here to speak on the county's ARPA housing and housing support programs. I know that in the last session, there were a lot of questions regarding housing supports and homeless assistance. So she'll touch a bit on the work that we're doing there. So with that, I'll turn it over to Susan.
Thank you, Soshi. Good afternoon, everyone. Could we go to the next slide, please? So as Soshi mentioned, the county's role in all of this is to really look and see how we can provide supports in areas of need, areas that are extremely disinvested, and leverage our funding with funding that's in place and funding that we hope to attract in order to have greater impact. And so what you see on the slide before you is our approach towards housing services, supports, and actual housing to the needs that emerged at the beginning of the pandemic, the middle of the pandemic, and can't believe it, but here we are in year 3 coming out of the pandemic. So I just wanted to begin by sharing what we looked at and what we saw. And what we saw was a great need to assist the homeless and to provide social service supports to families as well as businesses that were in one crisis after the other and needing to have these supports flexible enough that they could pivot to the needs that were in hand. So the key initiatives that we'll be looking at for those supports and investing in a 211 system, which is a system that provides information on critical social services that are available to county residents. The state of Illinois has one. We'll be cooperating and coordinating, with the city of Chicago and the state in building this system out and hoping that that will provide greater resilience and security to households when they need different types of support to get back on their feet. Also, we'll be using our ARPA funds to abolish medical debt. We're providing currently legal assistance for debt as well as housing counseling through our assistance program towards renters, homeowners, as well as property owners, actually, to make water more affordable because the rental programs that emerged in the last couple of years assisted with utility payments, and most of those were for electricity and gas, but we saw water is a need, particularly for our suburban resident, and energy efficiency to help with, again, the entire stack of debt that households were experiencing during the pandemic. Lastly, we'll be reinstituting our guaranteed income program that as financial needs changed over the course of what was happening to people, they needed extra money and they might have borrowed money they were spending for rent because they didn't have money to spend for utility or food or something else. So the guaranteed income program really gives them greater choice and control over their lives. So as we go into year 3, we're now looking at what are the root causes for all of the instability that emerged during the pandemic to make sure that we can address them so that they don't emerge again as the next thing stresses our households and people try to recover. So we'll be using our funds really with the focus of developing and implementing locally based strategies that serve the residents, build organizational capacity with our partners that are so they'll be ready to receive funds and help us with this work, and then create catalytic investments that motivate the private sector and the philanthropic sectors to help the entire community recover. Next slide, please. This slide really just shows you the success of our rental assistance program, and we're so proud of this. I just had to brag about it because I think it was a shining model of how impact from the very beginning of the pandemic, all of us, the state, the city, and the county received emergency rental assistance funds from the Treasury Department. And we began talking weekly with each other about the type of needs that we saw emerge, because the housing market is fluid. It doesn't stay in the city or the county or the state. People move around as they can afford to. And so we built a platform that really succeeded in getting money out very quickly to a large number of people. We were able to assist more than 14,000 households and get at more than $118 million out to people to help them pay their rent and their utility bills and make sure that they could stay housed during the course of what was hitting them during the pandemic. Next slide, please. I know we're running a little behind. I'll try to speed up. And so as we pivot now in the third year, looking at how we can get out of recovery and move towards greater stability and growth, we are looking to a set of things that can assist our most vulnerable residents. As I mentioned,
and Susan, we're going to
Yes.
pause 2 seconds. We have a little bit of a special visitor that's joining today's
I see,
presentation.
yes.
So we're going to pivot to Travis for Mayor Lightfoot to briefly say
Sure.
hello to the group.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just checking in to see how the conversation is going. I hope that everybody has found the various panels and discussions today helpful. And again, we encourage everyone, if you've got questions, you've got suggestions, don't hesitate to put your information into the chat. So thanks and carry on.
Thank you so much, Mayor Lightfoot. We appreciate you popping into today's session on housing. So we just heard from Commissioner Navarro. Now we're hearing from our cousins that we call at the county, talking about their housing program, and then we'll follow up with our partners at the state. But thank you so much for joining us briefly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kenya. I'm not really able to get my video back on. I don't know, is there a delay?
No, we see you perfectly.
Oh, okay, great. And so as I was mentioning, coming into the third year of the pandemic, we're looking at ways to foster growth so that we can accumulate wealth within our communities, help people become more secure in their housing, have better choices. And we need to start with the residents who are the most vulnerable, which are our homeless residents. So we'll be taking a chunk of our ARPA funding and leveraging it with other sources of funds that we receive, some federal and some state, and really supporting our hotel-based sheltering model, which we rolled out at the beginning of the pandemic, because there are at least 500 households out there that we know still need a form of support in this manner. And while we look at other ways to get them more permanently housed, we will need to continue to house them in hotels, as well as look for ways to create fixed site emergency shelter for people who are experiencing homelessness. Unlike the city, what we found during the pandemic was that there were very few fixed site emergency shelters available to suburban residents. So we'll be using some of our ARPA funds for that purpose. Next slide, please. And so again, I think I saw in the chat, someone was asking whether funding would be available for other forms of housing services and assistance, such as returning citizens. I think some of those services and programs were addressed in Track A, I believe. But we will be working closely with our colleagues in the Justice Advisory Council system at the city and at the state to make sure that, again, the housing experience is seamless to them as we leverage our funds. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Susan and Soshi, for providing an overview. Will we now hear from Deanna Wheeler as well as Megan Spitz, who will share some of the great work that's happening at IDA, which is the Illinois Housing Development Authority. So now we'll hear from the state, and then we'll follow up with questions. Again, guys, put your questions in the Q&A and we will try to get to them either by answering them directly or at the end. But thank you so much, Megan and Deanna, for joining us. We will now turn it over to you guys for your overview.
Yes, thank you, Kenya. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Spitz. I'm the Assistant Director of Policy and Research at Illinois Housing Development Authority, or IDA. We can go to the next slide. So in case you're not aware of the state housing related agency, IDA is Illinois' housing finance agency, and our mission is to create and preserve affordable housing across Illinois, including the city of Chicago and Cook County. We partner with lenders, developers, local government, nonprofits, community groups, and others to deliver low-cost financing programs. And we provide financial assistance to low and moderate income home buyers and homeowners, offer resources to developers who build or preserve affordable and mixed income rental housing, and provide oversight for hundreds of affordable rental communities across the state. In fact, one of every 18 rental units in the state was built or rehabilitated with IDA resources. Our home ownership programs have also helped thousands of families access over $700 million in mortgage financing through its home ownership programs. Next slide. This is getting more into depth on our funding resources, but we do have a wide realm of resources to develop rental housing similar to the city. We are the state allocating agency for low-income housing tax credits, and those credits are for 9% and 4% programs. We're the state participating jurisdiction for HUD's home program and National Housing Trust Fund. We also administer the Illinois Affordable Housing Trust Fund outside of the city of Chicago and Illinois Affordable Housing Tax Credit. And all of these resources are used as layered options to finance affordable housing developments. Our first mortgage loan products and taxable or tax exempt bond financing products help fill financial gaps in projects as well. Next slide. IDA is also committed to serving those most in need at the lowest incomes by having several programs to create permanent supportive housing, something Brian mentioned earlier. In the state level, we have a statewide referral network program. It's a state initiative that creates housing within IDA finance developments for extremely low income households. Persons experiencing homelessness, at risk of homelessness, and/or are living with a disability that are working with a service provider are eligible. The SRN network has already helped create about 2,600 units across the state, with about half of those subsidized, often with Public Housing Authority project-based vouchers. Section 811 is a demonstration program from HUD, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, that provides project-based vouchers to create permanent supportive housing in an integrated community-based setting. Persons living with a disability ages between 18 and 62 and are eligible for long-term services and supports are the eligible population. And this state focuses on 3 Olmstead-related consent decree populations, as well as persons at risk of institutionalization in its program. IDA has 3 rounds of funding through this program, and so far has created about 350 units across the state, many of which are in Chicago and Cook County. Finally, IDA has run 8 rounds of a permanent supportive housing development round that have created about 920 units. This funding round focuses on smaller projects, typically 25 units or less, that are 100% permanent supportive housing. And we encourage project developers to have a close partnership with 1 or more service providers to ensure the project is successful. All right, next slide. IDA has also had a large impact during the COVID-19 pandemic, similar to the city and the county. IDA administered 3 rounds of emergency rental assistance, helping tens of thousands of households with hundreds of millions of dollars. We've also administered an emergency mortgage assistance program, and we're planning on running a similar program starting in spring 2022. Finally, IDA has worked very closely with its state agency partner, Department of Human Services, throughout this pandemic to ensure program funds were distributed in a way to be most accessible to Illinois residents, those most in need, those disproportionately impacted, and also in order to connect those services to housing assistance. Used to be a vital part of Chicago, Cook County, and across the state with various funding resources for rental housing and homeownership with emergency and established funding sources. If you're interested in learning more about IDA's programs that I've mentioned here and how to apply for them, and please visit our site. It's www.ida.org, IHDA, for more information. I will now turn it over to my colleague, Senior Policy and Planning Officer, Deanna Wheeler, to provide more information about our latest funding available for a new housing program.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Megan. Again, my name is Deanna Wheeler, Senior Policy Officer at IDA. Well, we do understand that re-entering the community from a criminal justice system can be difficult. The process is even more difficult for those who become homeless and unemployed due to a lack of network or support system. And it's very common, I should say, for the justice-involved individuals to not have access to safe or even stable housing. As we're looking ahead, justice involved to us can be understood as pretrial, post-sentence completion, what have you. Justice involved individuals is how we're defining this RFA. So to better address the housing needs for such individuals, IDA is pleased to announce funding for up to $7.5 million from the Build Illinois Bond Program. It will be available for the acquisition, rehab, or new construction for projects that serve the justice-involved populations and offer flexible, voluntary supportive services designed to increase housing stability. We're partnering with our state partners at DHS and DOC in these efforts to support this RFA. Each applicant can apply for up to $475,000 per project. So that could be individual homes. We would consider each one a project, or it can be a building. But it can be across any 102 counties in the state. Applicants would include social service providers that either are currently or have successfully run such programs or serve such individuals. And if you are not in the housing or real estate development world, we ask that you partner or suggest that you partner with an experienced developer. But we are open to hearing all concepts and proposed ideas around serving this population. As I mentioned, on-site and or community services must be available. Next slide, please. We anticipate that this would be, again, 100% serving a population anywhere up to 50% AMI, but we are open to any combination of such. Permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, but this is primarily focused for transitional housing. Prior to submitting a concept meeting, or I should say attending a concept meeting or submitting an application, we encourage you to attend our webinar. The webinar will be held Thursday, February 10th at 3 p.m. to provide an overview of the request for application. You can find more information at our website at www.ida.org. A project concept meeting will be required prior to submitting an application. At this concept meeting, representatives from IDA's team, finance, the strategic planning and reporting division, as well as our partners from DHS and occasionally DOC may be on the call to help evaluate and support you to submit a good application. To request a concept meeting, again, simply visit our website. You can download the form, complete that, and email that to justicerfa@ida.org. Once you make it past the concept meeting, you will be notified by IDA that you will be approved to submit an application, and applications would be submitted through our online portal and are due no later than March 31st. Again, for more information and all the materials, feel free to visit our website at www.ida.org. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deanna, for that overview and the entire IDA team, as well as the team at the county's Bureau of Economic Development, and Commissioner Navarro and Brian for presenting on the city's efforts. And so now we'll allocate a little time for Q&A. I think there are some questions in the Q&A that have been answered. I will try and pull out some that I think have not been answered so far. So there's a question about recordings for this session. This session, as well as the other two tracks that are happening simultaneously, will be available on the city's website, the county's website, the state's website, and I believe we have a joint website collectively. Travis, correct me if I'm wrong. If that's true, can you put that link in the chat so that people are aware of it? I think I saw that on someone's presentation earlier. So all of these presentations will be available as well as the video for all of these sessions. So stay tuned for that. What I do want to point out, something that Deanna mentioned in one of her sessions, is that as these RFPs are coming out, guys, like make sure that you attend what's considered those bidders conference. That's where we will go into a lot more detail around the scope of work, what we're looking for, the pricing. And so when you're looking at that website, make sure that you're looking at that timeline when the RFPs are due, but most importantly, when we'll have those bidders conference, because that's when you'll get a lot more information around what to anticipate. Other questions? I think you guys did such an amazing job. We don't have a lot of questions, or you guys answered them all that I don't see them. I think you guys may have answered all of the questions. Well, a huge thank you. I've learned a lot today. I'm sure all of our participants have learned a lot today. And can I tell you, I'm so enthused by all of the work that's happening at the city level, at the county level, at the state level, to make housing available and affordable for our residents. And we know that housing can really transform communities. So I want to applaud all of our presenters today for the amazing work that they are doing. I don't know if we can see you guys can see me, but like applause. You guys are doing great work. And if you guys continue to have questions, I think we have all of the email addresses and the websites for all of our partners today. You can most certainly reach out to them after today's presentation. And so in terms of what's next, we have our friends from the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. We have Commissioner Harkey and her team, and they will cover the arts sector. They will go through what they're currently doing related to supporting the arts sector here in Chicago, and then what's to come for ARP. I'll briefly share with you what's also happening in the other tracks. So in track A for community services, we have the superstar Dr. Arwadi, who will be providing an overview of what to anticipate in terms of ARP for the Department of Health. We also have Dr. Joshi on the county side, as well as Israel Rocha. And I want to say that we also have a partner from the state that will be providing an overview of what's happening as it relates to health. That is track A, community services. Track B, transportation, infrastructure, and sustainability. We have Angela Tovar, who is the city's chief sustainability officer. And so I know that there were a couple of people in our earlier session around economic development that had questions around vacant lots. Some of those questions might be answered with some of the work that Angela is also doing with environment and sustainability, and that is track B. So we'll take a quick break, 1 to 2 minutes, and then we will be back with our friends from, again, the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, and they will go through what to anticipate for the arts sector for ARP. And again, a great big thank you to all of our presenters that provided a wealth of information on housing. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for those that have stayed with us since 2 o'clock. We are in our final session for this track. And I am super excited to hear from my former colleague and friend, Commissioner Erin Harkey, who is leading the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events, and her team member, Kalina. Kalina, I am not going to try and pronounce your last name. You know, I could if I would, but I won't. But we're super excited to hear about the great work that they've done so far, and what they have in the hopper related to ARP and just regular opportunities that are available that are a part of their portfolio. And if you guys have not checked out their press release for upcoming events this summer, make sure you calendar all of the great events that they have lined up. We're super excited that they're getting back to a full schedule of events, which means lots of great work coming from that department, but even more with ARP. And so, Erin, now I'll turn it over to you to hear a little bit more.
Okay, can you see me okay? Yep, okay, cool. Thanks, Kenya. We're still colleagues, even though you don't work at DCASE anymore, so I still count you. Thanks very much for the warm introduction. My name is Erin Harkey. I am the Commissioner of the Department of Cultural Affairs and Special Events. It's honored to be with you today to discuss the American Recovery Plan and other opportunities that are available to the arts and culture sector. There's no doubt about it that the last 2 years have been incredibly challenging for the cultural sector here in Chicago and really throughout the country. Before the pandemic, Chicago's arts sector was a $3.2 billion industry representing over 85,000 jobs. But according to a recent report by Arts Alliance Illinois on the impact of COVID-19 on our creative sector, the for-profit and nonprofit arts and culture industry lost an estimated $150 billion in sales and goods and services, and nearly a third of its jobs, 2.7 million, between April and July of last year. 95% of creative workers reported a loss of income. 55% reported having no savings to fall back on. 32% had faced eviction, and 52% experienced food scarcity. I share these numbers when I talk about the impact of COVID-19 on the cultural sector, because while we as kind of cultural consumers talk about all of the things that we missed, we couldn't go to a music show or see a theater performance, there was a real crisis of people on the other side, and there continues to be. People lost their jobs and weren't sure if they were going to be able to pay their rent or feed their families. And so as we move forward in any of these strategies, we're really, really trying to take a real human-centered approach to this, because this is really about people and their well-being. The good news is that Chicago's arts landscape has been incredibly resilient, and our artists and venues and cultural institutions, as they continue to safely reopen, it gives us renewed hope for better times ahead. And revitalizing our city's arts and culture scene is essential to our city's post-pandemic recovery, and the arts must be central to that recovery to bring Chicago back in all 77 of our neighborhoods. Next slide, please. One more slide. Which is why the investments and commitment that the Mayor Lightfoot put in our elected officials have made in the culture through the 22 recovery budget is so incredibly critical. Just to give you a little bit of background about our agency, DCASE is the local arts agency for the city of Chicago, and we're really charged with fostering the development of Chicago's nonprofit art sector, independent working artists and for-profit businesses, and supporting the cultural vitality of Chicago's 77 neighborhoods through our Art 77 recovery plan, which we'll talk a little bit more about in a second. We're also responsible for marketing the city's cultural assets to a worldwide audience. That includes DCASE programs that Kenya mentioned a little bit earlier, but also the entire scope of programs being produced by the cultural sector here. And we also present high quality, free and affordable programs for residents here at the Cultural Center and also at Millennium Park. Next slide. We're going to go over with you some new investment opportunities and also give you kind of an overview of our cultural grants program. This includes the recovery program investments. We're also going to give you a little kind of behind the scenes look at our cultural grants program and how some new data that we've been able to identify is helping to inform some strategies going forward. And then Kalina is also going to give you a sense of some other opportunities that are not directly funded by ARP dollars, but are still available to the cultural sector. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the recovery investments that we're going to be looking at through the recovery plan, and thanks to Mayor Lightfoot and our elected officials for making the commitment to culture in the 2022 recovery budget, provided an additional $26 million in new arts and culture investments, which includes, for the first time ever, a $10 million investment from the city's corporate budget. This increases the baseline of our cultural grants budget from $2.7 to $20.7 million over the next 2 years. Before this new influx of cash, the baseline was at 2.7, which we all acknowledged, I think, was woefully low for a city of this size. Next slide. So the new $26 million investments that came through the recovery budget are basically broken up into 3 different tranches. The $10 million that I just mentioned previously, which is a new dedicated revenue stream from the city's corporate budget, which will help protect us against fluctuations in the city's hotel occupancy tax, which is the primary vehicle by which this department and our programs are funded. There will be an additional $10 million in ARP funds, which will be focused on targeted relief for individual artists and creative workers and organizations, with a specific focus on those organizations and artists that were not able to access other federal economic support. So we're talking about individual creative workers, local museums, and other art and educational organizations. We're also really proud to announce that we're going to launch a new partnership, $6 million in Together We Heal placemaking or creative placekeeping grants, which will support projects that utilize community engagement to produce cultural projects, including community-led public art installations, pop-up galleries, and other cultural activations that really are at the center of leveraging the arts to support overall community health and vitality. Next slide. As I mentioned early on, this $26 million actually meets an earlier investment that we made last April called Art 77, which was a $60 million investment in arts and culture. So that 60 million plus this 26 puts our total public investment in the arts just in the past year at close to $100 million, which puts the city of Chicago very high up in terms of local government's support for the arts through recovery, which is something that I think we all should be really proud of. But the strategies as we go forward and we develop programs are really classified in 3 areas. One is that we're trying to expand access and participation in the arts citywide. The arts is not just a function of downtown. The arts happen in every community in every way possible. And so we need to develop programs that really share that spirit and seek to get these needed funds into our neighborhoods, especially those neighborhoods that have a history of a disinvestment. The second is to prioritize the employment of creative workers through city programs and services. As I mentioned at the top, this is about people, right? These are about workers. And we need to really focus on what supports we can put in place to make sure that Chicago is a place where creative people can live and thrive. And the third bucket of strategies is really focused on public sector investment. As I've mentioned, we've really done a lot to increase public support for the arts, but there's a lot still that we need to do in terms of analyzing public policy and public programs so that public policy across government, again, really supports creative workers and creative businesses and organizations. So that's a high level summary. I'm going to turn it over to my trusted colleague, Kalina Chevalier, who's the director of our grants program.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. So I want to quickly summarize all of our 2021 grant programs to give you an idea of where we stand now and how we've grown. So we have 2 signature financial grant programs that have been part of our portfolio throughout DCASE's history. our individual artist program, which provides project-based funding for practicing artists, and our City Arts program, which provides general operating and project grants to Chicago-based arts and culture-focused nonprofit organizations of all sizes. Next slide. In response to the pandemic, we also launched a series of relief grant programs over the past 2 years to provide grants to artists and arts organizations that have lost income due to the pandemic. So this started with the Arts for Illinois Relief Fund, which was a partnership with Arts Alliance Illinois, 3 Arts, Arts Work Fund, and the greater philanthropic community. Also in 2020, we launched the Performing Arts Venue Relief Program. And then this past fall, we launched the Chicago Creative Worker Assistance Program. This program was open to individuals and creative workers that have lost income due to the pandemic, not just artists, but also administrators, creative industry technicians, and anyone else working in the arts. As we progressed through 2020 and into 2021, we launched a series of additional grant programs to address emergent needs and support the arts sector's recovery as part of our Art 77 recovery plan. So the Chicago Presents program helped provide organizations with the funding they needed to begin producing again. So these grants provided presenting support for free public programs. We also saw a clear need for funding artists to create projects in response to the current moment, which led to the development of the Artist Response Program. So recognizing that artists have always played an important role in advancing the causes of justice and equity, this program was designed to get funds to artists for projects that engage residents in dialogue, reflection, and action. There were 2 funding streams through this program: direct grants for large-scale public art projects and re-granting partnerships that allowed partner organizations to create their own grant programs to fund artists within their communities. And as arts organizations and artists pivoted to new ways of creating and presenting and faced unique capacity issues, we also launched the Professional Development Provider Program to make grants to organizations and individuals to present professional development programs focused on artist career development or organizational operations. And last but not least is the Neighborhood Access Program. So this program was already in development prior to the pandemic. And through this program, we've piloted a variety of strategies to strive towards a more equitable distribution of grant funds across the city. So this program provides grants for all types of community-based arts and culture activities. And we do plan to offer all of these forms of support throughout 2022 with the increased grants budget as well. So next slide. I'm now going to go ahead and speak in more detail about our Chicago Recovery Plan programs funded by American Rescue Plan funds. So as the commissioner mentioned earlier, we do have $6 million for placekeeping grants in alignment with the City of Chicago's Year of Healing. So the goal of this grant program is to support projects that use community engagement and arts in a transformative way to promote racial healing, cultural awareness, neighborhood vibrancy, and community building. Similar to last year's Artist Response Program, we will have 2 different types of grants. So the direct grants for large-scale public art projects and re-granting partnerships. So individual artists can apply for those direct grants, and then nonprofit organizations will apply to be re-granting partners. And some of the types of projects we're looking to support are story circles, murals, sculptures, walking or bike tours, pop-up galleries, street festivals, and reimaginations of vacant lots and buildings. This program will be announced actually end of first quarter, probably in March, with applications accepted in Q2. And then we do plan to have notifications out to our grantees in the third quarter of 2022. And next slide. We are also going to be offering relief and recovery grants again in 2022 with the goal to provide targeted relief and emergency assistance, focusing on the creative workforce and arts organizations that have not been able to access other forms of federal economic support. So these programs will be open to nonprofit arts and culture organizations, for-profit arts businesses, and all types of creative workers. So similar to our Chicago Creative Worker Assistance Program that I already spoke of, we want to make sure that funds are going to be available for freelance artists, arts administrators, teaching artists, artisans, curators, independent cultural producers, and creative industry technicians, such as stage managers, theater and music technicians, art handlers, preparators, cinematographers, and film and lighting technicians, gaffers. And that's just some examples, but really trying to emphasize that the hardships from the pandemic have impacted the full arts and creative sector, and we want to make sure that we are addressing that full sector's needs. So these programs will be announced in the second quarter of 2022, with grantees notified in the third quarter. Next slide. So as the commissioner mentioned, we also want to just talk through some details from recent program assessments. So want to talk about some key takeaways from research data and community input sessions that have identified issues we need to address with our programs and some strategies we are planning to use to address those. So through past input sessions with various community members and stakeholders in the arts sector, we've identified some issues that are leading to disparities in our program. This slide outlines those areas and some strategies we're using to address them. So the first issue listed here is just a lack of awareness about our grant programs. So many community members that we've spoken to were not aware of all of these grant programs that DCASE offers and or didn't know that they could access these funds. So we are working on increasing outreach, including working with neighborhood-based organizations as promotional partners and application assistance workshop co-hosts. We now also have CTA ads and more hard copy flyer distribution, and are holding open office hour sessions at libraries and cafes on the south and west side. We also identified an issue of just overall barriers to applying. So our grant program's eligibility criteria has not always been inclusive of all arts providers. So we are revising some of that criteria. The Neighborhood Access Program that I mentioned earlier is really the best example of this. This program is open to any type of nonprofit organization that is doing cultural programming, as well as individual artists, cultural producers, and curators. So organizations do not need to be entirely arts focused to apply. This means we can accept applications from social and community service organizations, SSAs, and even sometimes religious institutions if they do provide significant services that are non-religious in nature. And then a third issue area that was identified is burdens in the application and contracting process. So we are working to streamline our application processes, to update data collection and economic disclosure tools, and are also now hosting contracting orientations. We also, another strategy that I mentioned earlier that is listed here at the bottom of the slide, but it's really a big shift for us, is beginning to work with re-granting partners. So as I mentioned earlier, when we partnered on the Arts for Illinois Relief Fund, we created a model for re-granting partnerships that can allow us to partner with organizations that are better positioned to respond quickly to crises and complex needs of individual communities and neighborhoods. We launched the first open application process to select re-granting partners as part of our Artist Response Program, and do hope to continue and expand our work with re-granting partners this year in 2022. Next slide. And this slide shows some more key issues identified from recent research conducted by Bloomberg Associates, SMU Data Arts, and Arts Alliance Illinois. So recent research conducted by SMU Data Arts indicates that Chicago underperforms peer cities on local government support of arts nonprofit organizations. So DCASE only covered about 0.4% of overall expenses on average at these organizations, compared to other cities averaging over 3% expense coverage. So the increased grants budget that the commissioner spoke about earlier addresses this and really puts us in alignment with peer cities. And a significant investment in nonprofit organizations is needed to provide our arts sector with stability. Another issue that the commissioner spoke about in detail is just these ongoing hardships that the arts sector has faced due to the pandemic. So we are looking to front load distribution of ARP funds in 2022 to give artists, organizations, and cultural producers an influx of cash to regain capacity. And then another issue area is that artists and creative workers are not supported by living wages and benefit structures. This is a long-term issue that precedes the pandemic and will require extensive partnerships, collaboration, and rethinking to fully address. But one way we are hoping to address this is by expanding that Chicago Creative Worker Assistance Program to address broader needs of creatives. Next slide. So I want to also just speak about some current opportunities that we have going on that are not funded by rescue plan funds, but are things that are currently open and available that I wanted folks to be aware of. So our City Arts program that was mentioned earlier, this is our signature grant program providing general operating grants to nonprofit arts organizations, as well as project grants. That application opens on Monday, and there is going to be some exciting updates to that program. So please do check that out. And if you are an arts-focused nonprofit, please apply for that. We also have another application currently open at DCASE, which is for our Millennium Park Residency program. So this is an opportunity for up to 3 organizations to curate a series of programs in Millennium Park, with community engagement and planning taking place in 2022, and the programs taking place in 2023. The deadline to apply for that program is March 4th. We also are always accepting applications for grant review panelists. So funding recommendations for all of our programs are made by an external grant review panel, and we are recruiting panelists year round. So we will put a link to the application to be a grant review panelist in the chat. So if you are interested in participating in that process, we would love to have you. And we will also share a link just to our overall cultural grants program website in the chat, which is where you can access all of these other opportunities. I also wanted to make sure that people are aware of the Chicago Arts Census Project being administered by ACRE. So this project is collecting data about arts workers to help fight for better working, living, and making conditions. So I highly encourage any of you that are part of the arts sector in any way to fill out that survey. And then lastly, I wanted to let you know that we've actually been collecting some feedback on our programs to help us identify any new strategies where we want to develop additional funding opportunities, as well as to think through how we are going to allocate our increased budget. So we've been collecting feedback via a survey with Arts Alliance Illinois as our partner, and that survey is on their funding and futures page. So I believe that we will be able to share that link with you as well. So if you do have feedback you'd like to provide to us or ideas of other ways we can support artists and arts organizations, we would love to hear it. And I think that that is all that we're going to present on, but happy to answer any of your questions. So I guess I can turn it back to Kenya to open up questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that presentation. Lots of great information, lots of great work happening at DCASE. You guys are doing more than like I can imagine with just helping to move the city's cultural sector forward, as well as planning events. How do you find the time? And so thank you guys for all of the great work that you're doing under the leadership of Commissioner Harkey. And so now we'll turn it over to a few questions that we had. I think that you did such an amazing job. I think we only have a few questions, so I'll briefly go through them. Someone asked about information around the IAP applicants. How many applications do you get every year?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So our individual artist program application actually just closed at the beginning of January, and we actually received 852 applications this year, which is the most we've ever received. So usually we receive around 575. So this was quite an increase for us. So I'm really excited to have the word out about the program. I think that we're going to be able to fund, artists really across the city in every ward and community area, and really excited about that. So those notifications for anyone that did apply will be going out in April, and then the application cycle will open again in the fall.
Oh my God, that is awesome, Kalina. And I would imagine with the increase in volume of applications, you briefly touched on this. If people were interested in being reviewers, they can fill out that application, and it's open all year round. And that can be found on your website as well.
That's right. Yep. And the application just takes about 10 minutes to fill out. So if you are interested in being a reviewer, yeah, we are, as the demand increases and we get more applications, we need more reviewers as well, and really like to make new connections through that process.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Lots of great things that are happening to support Chicago's creative community. It's growing here. It's thriving. New York, what? LA, who's that? Chicago is the place to be. And you guys are doing amazing work to support that sector. Someone had a question about the fashion industry. Is that eligible as a part of these programs, Kalina?
Absolutely. Yeah. Fashion is an eligible artistic discipline across our program. So definitely we get quite a few applications from fashion designers through our individual artist program each year, and also open to supporting fashion nonprofits and businesses as well.
Awesome. Thank you. Someone had a question about quarters. The city is on the calendar year. So of course our quarters just follow the calendar year schedule. Someone asked about new organizations. How can they demonstrate that they also have a need for funding?
Yeah, we are really excited to bring new organizations into our grantee pool. So really encourage anyone that meets our eligibility criteria to apply. So the program that's opening on Monday, our City Arts program, is for all arts-focused nonprofits, and really looking to get some new applicants into that program. And our website, I think, has already been shared in the chat, is chicagoculturalgrants.org. And all of our contact information is there as well. So if you have a question about how to connect with our programs or which program would be the best fit for you, feel free to reach out to me or anyone else on the grants team.
Awesome. And someone asked a question about, opportunities if you aren't in Chicago. I know there's the Illinois Arts Council. Do they have grant programs as well, Kalina?
They do, yeah. So Illinois Arts Council agency does have a series of grant programs as well. So I would definitely check them out. They do, similar to us, they do fund organizations as well as artists. So they're a really good resource for that.
Great, thank you for that. So if you are outside of Chicago, you do have opportunities at the state level. And someone asked about the difference between grants for for-profits and nonprofits. Is there an opportunity for for-profits to apply for any of DCASE's grants?
Yeah, so we have accepted for-profit applications previously through our relief programs. And we do plan to have more relief programs this year. Also through our Chicago Presents program that accepted applications from for-profits, as well as our professional development provider program. So we're still working on what those initiatives are going to be in 2022, but there are some opportunities for for-profits.
Awesome, great. And so someone asked a question, I guess, around conflict of interest. Can they apply to be a reviewer, but then also apply for a grant as well?
Thank you so much for that question. So yeah, if you have applied for a grant program, you cannot also be on the review committee for that program. But because we have so many programs, there's likely another place where we might be able to fit you in.
Awesome, thank you for that. Yeah, you can't be giving yourself grants. So thank you for that clarification, Kalina. Are there any capital opportunities under DCASE's program?
Thanks so much for that question. Yeah, we are definitely looking to bring more arts-focused capital opportunities to the city. Right now, I know arts organizations are eligible for capital programs that do exist through other departments. So the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund and other programs through Department of Planning and Development, which might have been spoken about at one of the other sessions. But arts organizations are definitely eligible to apply for those citywide capital opportunities.
Yeah, you guys have done great work in collaborating with the Department of Planning and Development. We know that arts and community is just as important as is a pillar of economic development. And so your collaborations with DPD and the arts sector has been great. So I have a question about Arts 77 programs. Will those programs continue in 22? And is there a timeline for that?
Yeah, so all of the types of support that we offered through Arts 77, we are planning to have in some way in 2022. It might look a little different. So for example, the artist response program that I spoke about, a lot of those goals will be reflected in the new program associated with the Year of Healing. So we're still kind of working through how to make sure that all of those goals and strategies are addressed in our 2022 program portfolio. But you will see all of those types of funding offered in some way in 2022.
Awesome. And then last question before we wrap it up. Is there money for arts related travel? Apparently someone has received an amazing opportunity to participate in Artists in Residence program. Do we provide support for that?
We do, yeah. So through our individual artist program, we actually are able to cover most travel expenses. There are some allowable stipends that are outlined in the guidelines for that program, but we are able to support travel and to support Chicago's artists kind of going out and showcasing their work with the rest of the world.
That's great. Not only can we benefit from the amazing creatives here in Chicago, but we can share the wealth. Thank you, Kalina, so much. Thank you, Commissioner Harkey, for sharing all of the great opportunities that are in the pipeline with DCASE, but most importantly, all of the great work that you guys are doing already to support Chicago's arts and culture ecosystem. Kudos to you, and thank you so much for sharing today. And for our participants, this is the last session for today. We know that it's been a long day, but we hope that you found all of this information helpful as you start to plan and think about all of the great work that's happening at the city level, that's happening with the county, and that's happening at the state, but most importantly, how you can fit in and take advantage of some of these opportunities. Again, this is a once in a lifetime chance for us to do some really cool and creative and innovative work in our neighborhoods. And we look forward to partnering and working alongside each and every one of you. Thank you so much and have a wonderful and safe weekend.